Fievel's plan. 2 hours passed. Wade was up on the roof of the post office building with Dawson and Carlston. It was a tall building, and they could see right across Santiago Bay to Cape Sarat. The sky began to grow lighter in the east. There were no clouds and no wind, but it was very hot. Manning came up onto the roof to see Wade. "Any news?" he asked. Wade shook his head. Suddenly Carlston said, "What is happening at the US base? Look." They looked and saw plane after plane taking off from Camp Sarat. They saw first one ship, then another, and another begin to move out to sea. The US Navy was on the move. "Brooke is leaving the base," Wade said excitedly. "They will have the latest satellite pictures of Mabel. They must know that she is changed direction." "My God," shouted Mannion, "there is going to be a hurricane." The room downstairs was full of people. "So, the big wind is coming," said Fievel. "What should we do, Mr. Wade?" "Get everybody out of the city," Wade said at once. "Perhaps Surier will agree to stop fighting while..." The soldiers laughed. "Surier," said Fievel, "he doesn't care about the people. And he knows that we don't have hurricanes he told you, remember? Now we must continue fighting and hold back his army while we get the people out." He turned to Manning. "Charles, this is your job. I want you to get everybody out of the city except the army. Send the people up the Negrito Valley, but keep them well away from the river. You can have 2,000 soldiers to help you." "Julio," said Manning. He held his head between his hands. "We can't do it. We haven't enough. If the people won't move," continued Fievel, "push them. If necessary, you will have to shoot a few. There is no time to explain or to argue with them. Just get them out in 10 hours from now, and I want you, every man, woman, and child, out of St. Pierre." "Impossible," said Manning. Fievel looked at him. "Do it, Charles," he said softly. Manning closed his eyes. "Okay," he said, "we get them out. Then what?" "Then we will let Surier and his army take St. Pierre. For the first time ever, a hurricane will come a weapon of war." Fievel smiled gently. The room was silent for a second. Then Wade found his voice. "You can do that," he said shakily. "Can't I?" Fievel turned his fierce blue eyes on Wade. "I have been trying to kill those men with bullets and with bombs, and they want to kill me and my men. We shouldn't I let the hurricane have them. Many of my men will die while we fight to give the people time to get out." "I warned you about the hurricane in order to save lives," said Wade, "not to take them." "Think, man," said Fievel angrily. "What do you want me to do? Leave me men in the city to drown in the floods? I must take my men out, and when we leave the city, of course Syrier's army will come in. I am not asking them to come in." "How far out of the city will you go?" asked Wade. "We will stop on the hills around the city at the 25 meters contour line. You told us that we will be just above the floods there. If you go higher, the Syrian soldier can follow you to higher ground where you will be safe." Wade was almost shouting now. "No," Fievel banged his hand down on the table. "I don't wish to fight any more battles. Let the hurricane do its work." "But it's murder," Wade said wildly. Fievel stared at him. "War is murder," he said. Wade spent most of the morning on the roof, staring miserably at the clear blue sky. He wanted desperately to go and look for Julie. Where she was she? Would she find a safe place to shelter during the hurricane? He tried not to think about Fievel's terrible plan. At At 1 o'clock, Carlston came up to see him. "Anything happening?" he asked. "Mabel is on her way," said Wade. "Look at those clouds." A few thin high clouds were appearing in the south. The air was hot and heavy. There was no wind at all. Carlston looked at Wade's unhappy face. "You are still angry with Fievel, aren't you? He is as bad as Syria." "Look, Wade," Carlston said, "you are not thinking clearly. It's not an easy plan, you know. Fievel has 5,000 men against Syria's 15,000. He was lucky to take St. Pierre at all, and he hasn't won the war yet. Syria's army is already beginning to attack from the west and the southeast. Fievel has only 3,000 men to fight, while the other 2,000 get the people out of the city, and then Fievel has to get his men out and put to the 25 meters line of Syria's guns, having killed them first." Both men were silent for a while. Then Wade asked, "Have they finished moving the people out?" "No, it's difficult to move 60,000 people in a few hours," Carlston said. "No more." He had been out in the city all morning. Fievel's soldiers were pulling people from their homes and driving them like sheep along the streets. There was no time to explain, to be patient. People who tried to turn back fell under the feet of the crowds. People who argued were shot. Dead bodies lay at every street corner. It was terrible, cruel, violent, but it was necessary. At 3 o'clock, heavy gray clouds began to move across the sky. It was hotter than ever, and there was a thin circle of cloud around the sun. Wade went down to see Fievel. "Mabel will hit at about 5 o'clock, he told Fievel. "You will have winds of about 100 kilometers an hour, and they will get worse very quick. The tidal wave will hit probably soon, after 6 o'clock, and in the next 24 hours you will have between 12 and 25 centimeters of rain." Fievel turned to Manning. "We will have to hurry, Charles. Start moving our men out now." "Syria is pushing hard from the south," said Manning tiredly. "I will do my best, Julia." He left the room quickly. Fievel turned back to Wade. "Thank you, Mr. Wade," he said calmly. "Please inform me at once of any chance." The sound of guns was now much louder, as Syria's army fought its way back in the city. Slowly, Fievel's soldiers moved backward street by street, while the last of the people were pushed out of the city. Many soldiers died. At 4 o'clock, Fievel ordered his men to blow up the big guns. There was no time to move them. 20 minutes later, Fievel gave the order to leave the city. From the back of the Fievel's army car, Wade looked back through the window to the south. Low gray clouds now covered the sky, and the smoke from burning buildings was driven sideways by the rising wind. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. Marble hits the island. Julia sat with her back against a banana tree and stared up at the sky. The sun had disappeared behind thick gray cloud, and the cool wind was beginning to blow. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. She turned to the man next to her. "I think we should move on now," she said. "The weather is getting worse." Ravsthorn opened his eyes. His face was tired and gray. "Yes, my dear, you are right. We must find a safe place than this field. We will go north across this valley in front of us and up over the next hill." They woke Mrs. Barmington, and the three of them moved forward through the field of banana trees. The last 2 days had not been easy. It had been impossible to drive out of the St. Pierre because there was so many people on the road, so they had left the car and walked it. As evening came, the road became crowded with serious soldiers who were running from the Battle of St. Pierre. Julie and the others left the road and spent the night in a field. In the morning there were still a lot of soldiers around, so they kept away from the road. Ralsthorn knew the Eastland well, and he decided that they should turn north. "We must get away from the Syrians' army," he said. "We will go north over the hills towards the Negrita Valley." It was difficult, rocky ground, and they could not walk fast. Ralston was an old man, and his heart was not strong. Mrs. Warmington was fat and lazy, and wore fashionable shoes that hurt her feet. She was not an intelligent woman, and she argued all the time in a thin, high voice. Julie was very tired of her. By 5:30 the wind had become very strong. It beat fiercely at the backs as they climbed the last few meters to the top of the hill. Quickly they climbed down the other side to get out of the wind and then stopped to rest for a minute. They were now at the top of the Negrita Valley and could see down to the river 300 meters below. Ralston started. "My God," he said, "what is happening down there?" Hundreds, thousands of people were moving slowly along the valley. "They must be from St. Pierre," said Ralston. "But why have they come up here, I wonder?" He did not finish, but Julie understood. "There is only one reason," she said, and her voice shook with happiness. It's Dave. It must be. He's managed to warn the people of St. Pierre about the hurricane. He is alive." Ralston put his hand on her arm. "I hope so," he said kindly, "but I think we must find somewhere to shelter from the storm now." A few minutes later they found some large rocks, and underneath them in the side of the hill was a large hole, almost a cave. It was just big enough for 3 people, and as they crawled into it, the first heavy drops of rain began to fall. As Fievel car drove up the road to the hill, the sound of Syria's guns was now too far behind. His soldiers were moving in fast to take the city back from the rebels. Wade tried one last time. "Must there be more killing?" he asked Fievel. "It's too late," said Fievel. "My men will be lucky if they can get out of the city in time. I can do nothing more." The blue eyes looked at Wade. "You must talk to your God, Mr. Wade, and I must talk to mine," he said gently. At the 25-meter contour line, Fievel's men had been busy. On the northern side of a long, low ridge, they were digging deep holes everywhere. They would shelter in these holes from the storm. At the top of the ridge, one soldiers lay with their guns and looked down the hill towards the city. Dawson was waiting for Wade near the top of the ridge. "Hi," he said. "Carlston chose a nice, comfortable hole for us, just right for the 3 of us." They stood together and looked down the hill toward the city and beyond it to the sea. The southern sky was now filled with black, mountainous clouds, and the wind was becoming stronger every minute. As they watched, groups of Fievel soldiers appeared on the edge of the city and began to run up the hill towards the ridge. "That is the last of Fievel's men now," said Carlston behind them. He had to shout above the noise of the wind. "I hope Syria's soldiers don't try to attack us up here." "This war will be over in 10 minutes, said Wade. "No one can fight a war in a hurricane." More than 5 centimeters of rain fell in the first hour, huge, heavy drops as big as stones. They hit the body like bullets. Wade kept his head down and sat with Carlston and Dawson in a hole full of water. All around them ran water, rain, in rivers down the ridge, turning the soft ground to mud everywhere. Above their heads the wind was wild and violent. It was already blowing, white out at about 120 kilometers an hour. Carlston was frightened. He had not realized that the storm would be so bad. He put his mouth next to Wade's ear and shouted, "How long will this go on?" He could only just hear Wade's answering shout, "About 8 hours. Then it will stop for a short time. Then we will have about another 10 hours. Will it get worse?" "It hasn't really started yet," Carlston thought. Wade sounded amused. He pushed himself deeper into the mud and covered his ears with his hands. Night came and the savage wind grew more and more violent. Lightning flashed across the blackness of the sky. Hours after hour, the hurricane screamed like an animal in pain. Soon after midnight, the wind reached speed of more than 250 kilometers an hour. The noise alone was frightening and endless, savage howl. It was impossible to move, to speak, to think in that terrible wind. Once, when Dawson opened his eyes, he saw the three flying past above their heads. He felt the ground shake as the three crashed down not far behind their hole. Hours passed, then at last Wade noticed a change. The rain had stopped now, and he thought the wind was less violent. He cleaned the mud off his watch. 4 o'clock. Very carefully he pushed his hand up out of the hole. Yes, he was right. The wind was not strong. What had happened out there? He had to know. Slowly he pulled himself out of the hole and began to crawl upwards on his stomach through the mud. The wind tore at his wet clothes and he was afraid to lift his head too high. At last he reached the top of the ridge and carefully lifted his face from the mud. He stared into the darkness down the hill. At first he could see nothing, but he thought he could hear the sound of water. He stared again. A flash of lightning lit up the sky, and then Wade saw a very frightening thing. Not more than 200 meters away was the sea, a stormy gray sea with angry little waves. The wind blew fiercely into Wade's face, and he could taste salt water on his lips. St. Pierre had disappeared, drowned under the sea.
Nighttime, lights shine bright. Nighttime, lights shine bright. Nighttime, lights shine bright. Gold rings, vain memories. Green eyes, lost in time. Nighttime, lights shine bright.
30 seconds and counting. 20 seconds and counting. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower clear. We got a roll program. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. That's one